It appears that Senator James Inhofe has purchased stocks in the defense industry immediately following convincing Donald Trump to possibly increase funding for the Defense Department. This is a story that the Daily Beast broke, and it's a fantastic story because it gives you yet another example of the type of conflicts of interest at play among our lawmakers and the type of corruption that takes place. According to the reporting, days after signing his support for unprecedented levels of US defense spending, Senator James Inhofe, the chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, reported purchasing tens of thousands of dollars of stock in one of the nation's top defense contractors. Inhofe's financial advisor bought him between $50,000 and $100,000 in stock in defense contractor Raytheon. Now, what I find funny about all of this is the Daily Beast did its due diligence, reached out to the senator to ask him about this financial disclosure, and 20 minutes later, dumped the stocks. Dumped them and put out a press release indicating that he didn't know about it and that his financial advisor did it without consulting with him, and that his financial advisor has now been told not to purchase any of that stock again.
Okay, so if you have non-public information, it's now against the rules in the Senate to buy stocks based on that. So in this case, it was publicly announced that they were going to increase the Pentagon budget, but only a couple of days before that. And Inhofe might still have non-public information about not only how much money they're gonna spend, but how they're gonna spend it, including maybe giving it to Raytheon. Okay, so he's obviously using his position of power there. He's the head of the Armed Services Committee. I mean, that is the most relevant person in all of Congress for how much money we're gonna spend on defense contractors. He's the one that pushed for spending the most amount of money. A couple of days later, he turns around and he's allowed to know what's in his portfolio. He's hiding behind his so-called financial advisor, but he's allowed to tell him what to buy. He's allowed to know what he bought. It's a matter of public information. And so coincidentally, after he pushes for a giant amount of defense money in the budget paid by us, the United States taxpayers, okay, he then turns around and wants a profit off of it. I mean, remember, Raytheon and all the other guys, they already give him hundreds of thousands of dollars in campaign contributions. This is for him to actually make a personal profit off of it.
So he does receive a ton of money in the form of campaign contributions. In fact, the two top industries he receives the most money from include the defense contractors and the oil and gas industry. Yeah, the fossil fuel industry, I should say. But with that said, I do want to point to how much it enrages people like me, progressives, Americans in general, 70% of whom want a Medicare for all healthcare system. When lawmakers like Senator Inhofe argue, it's just too expensive, we can't afford it, we can't afford it. And then they turn around and they give speeches like this.
The National Defense Strategy outlined by Secretary Mattis is not adequately resourced, and that our nation is very near the point of strategic insolvency. Strategic insolvency, it's kind of a scary name. But it's going to have sufficient funds to carry out our national defense strategy. It would be easy. All you have to do is make sure that everybody knows and government knows that our number one thing that priority in this country should be defense.
So Trump has already agreed to $717 billion a year in defense spending. And James Inhofe has apparently convinced him that he needs to up that amount to $750 billion. How funny, $750 billion a year.
Yeah, and by the way, Donald Trump also says that he needs $5 billion for the wall. Okay, why don't you make the Pentagon budget $745 billion and take $5 billion and move it to the wall? No, the defense contractors have to get everything, everything. These guys, as I saw him speaking there about how we're gonna have strategic insolvency. We spend more money in the military than the 8 other biggest militaries in the world combined, okay? And it's all waste. There's this report out recently about how the Pentagon could not track $21 trillion, 21 trillion. Now, it's on both sides of the ledger, and so it's not $21 trillion that was wasted overall, but it shows you their incompetence in tracking the money, and that's partly on purpose. Oops, oh, did we lose billions of dollars? Did they slip through the cracks to our defense contractor friends for a complete waste? But when we asked for $75 billion for college for all, just 10% of that, so that every kid in this country can have equality of opportunity. So it's not just rich kids who get to go to college, but middle class kids and poor kids. They go, nope, no money, nope, no money at all. We just can't seem to find it.
Well, Cenk, look, he needs to find a way to pay for all that waste in the Pentagon. He even talks about it in detail. So let's see what he has to say about it.
And how do we increase our defense spending and the appropriate associated spending to the correct level without adding to that debt?
There's only one way to address that, and that is entitlement reform. Yes, I would be very supportive of entitlement reform. There are programs that people are talking about, but that's where the money is. That's where the savings is. First of all, reprioritize where the defense is, where it has been historically in this country, and secondly, just flat exempt the defense spending from the budget caps until we get this corrected. And the only way to correct it, the best way to correct it, is to go after entitlement reform, and I'm one who will support that.
You understand what he just said there? What they call entitlements is Social Security and Medicare. He said that's where the money is, because you paid into it through payroll tax your whole life. They're coming to rob you so they could pay off their donors. That Senator Inhofe right there is the perfect example of a rich, elitist, scumbag, corrupt politician. But not only it has stayed in power through those campaign contributions from the military contractors, but now is trying to personally enrich himself by buying their stocks, because in his infinite greed, he can't help himself. So thank God he was caught, and then he was like, oh yeah, sure, I didn't mean to do it. Of course you meant to do it. It's just that corruption is sickening. And then they're gonna try to rob you of all those payroll taxes that you paid. Meanwhile, pretending that, oh, we're conservatives who care about the American taxpayer. No, you care about robbing the American taxpayer to pay your rich donor friends. Senator Inhofe is repulsive. And why do you think he brought that snowball into the Senate? Why do you think he fights so hard to make sure that we don't do anything about climate change and the impending disaster? It's not even impending, it's here. The wildfires, the hurricanes, nothing. Why? Because his second largest donors are the fossil fuel industry. While we die, if you had people, family members who died in that fire, who died in the hurricanes, Senator Inhofe made that happen. He made climate change way worse by making sure the American government never did anything about it. Why? Because he wanted more money from the fossil fuel companies. He is corruption defined. I can't wait to rout them and drive them out of Washington. They should be tarred and feathered and driven from Washington. If they find out that he had extra knowledge about how the money was going to go to Raytheon, they should lock his ass up. Lock him up, lock him up, lock him up. Thanks for watching this free clip of the Young Turks. Don't forget to become a TYT member today. For more exclusive content, join now at tyt.com/join.